Hi everyone, John Dickinson here from Motionworks. In this series of tutorials I want to walk you through a project I created last year for some roadshows I did for Adobe. It was a pretty popular presentation, but in those presentations I just walked through basic workflow because the presentations were quite short. What I want to do on Motionworks though is take you step by step through exactly how I created this animation. So let's start by taking a look at the finished animation. Okay, so there's a lot of things happening in here. It looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. The main feature of the animation is this can, or this dancing can, and for this I've used the puppet pin tool. I've also used shape layers for this pulsating organic looking star in the background, and done some basic color correction, and also created an interesting fractal noise animation with grid to get the background pulsing to the music. So there's a bunch of things to cover. I think it's going to take about maybe 4 tutorials, maybe 5. What we're going to do today though is start off by seeing how to animate the can using the puppet pin tool. Okay, so here's the can, just a standard Photoshop file. So let's select the puppet pin tool, and what we're going to do is click at the very top, in the middle, and at the bottom of the can. And this creates 3 pins. And you can see if I move the cursor over the pin, it changes from the pin to the move tool. And now if I click and drag, you can see I can very cleanly warp the can. So what we want to do is animate the can to the music, and of course we could do that manually, but there is a much faster way, and that's using Puppet Pin's motion sketch feature. So we have the music layer inside the comp. So we're going to reveal the waveform by pressing LL. There's the waveform there. For this to work, you have to have an audio layer in the comp. Now I've still got the puppet pin tool selected, so what I'm going to do is move over the middle pin and hold down the command key. That'll be Control on Windows. And you can see that the cursor changes to a stopwatch. I need to be at 0 seconds, just drag that back to 0. And now, if I click my mouse, the music will start playing, and I can start to move the can, and that'll be recorded as long as I'm still holding down the mouse button. So I'll give it a go. Okay, I'm not hearing the audio through my headphones. Let me just check my preferences. Audio hardware. I did an e-seminar today and I had my Logitech headset on, so let's just change that to built-in line output. Just check the audio output mapping. Same again, built-in line output. Okay, let's try that again. So I move over the middle pin, hold down the command key, and animate. Now I have to say it takes a bit of practice. When I first did this animation I must have done it about 20 times before I got something I was happy with. And one of the things that actually helped me, before I show you that, let's just have a look at the motion path. You can see here we've got a big motion path and we've got a bunch of keyframes. Let's just preview that. I found that playing the music back at 100% speed was way too difficult to get the can to do what I wanted it to do on the beat. So there is actually a feature that can help you if you have trouble as well. Okay, so that can is not exactly doing what I want it to do. Just going to undo that. And what you can do, you can't see it here at the moment because I'm using a very low resolution. Let me just drag this open. Just a little bit more. You have a record options. When you have the puppet pin tool selected, there's record options. If I click that, you can see I can actually change the speed from 100%. So I'm going to make that 50%. Let's just move this back. Just reset this. And now when I play the music back, it'll play back at 50% speed. So let's try that again. Notice when I click and drag that you can see the can stationary, but we actually work with an outline that's moving. So you don't actually see the can move, just the outline. Let's try that again. Here we go. Okay, so you get the idea. It takes a bit of practice, but you can see how much easier it is to control with the playback at 50%. Let's just preview that. Still not moving fast enough. Just take a few more goes to get that right. But you get the idea, so I'll let you do a bit of practice with that. Now, at the end of the animation, of course, we want the can to be stationary and in its exact original position. Okay, so how do we fix that up? You can see at the moment it's warped slightly. Let's take a look at the keyframes. So this is the last keyframe. Now the file itself, if we just look at the file in the project window, reveal layer source in project, is 277 by 796. So what we want to do is change that pin's position to half of that value. And we can do that in the position window. You can see I double clicked on the keyframe. So if I type in 277 divided by 2 and 796 divided by 2, that'll put that pin in exactly the center of the Photoshop file, which means that there'll be no distortion. So it finishes up in exactly the right spot. Alright, now one other thing to check is the distortion of the can, the tearing of the can on the top and the bottom. We can control that by using the Puppet Starch tool. You can see down here there's a bit of tearing down the bottom, or a bit of stretching. So we'll choose the Puppet Starch tool, and when we do that we get a green outline of the can, and the idea is just to click near that outline and stiffen up those areas that are warping. That looks pretty good. Good idea to just do a little bit of starch around the center because the actual logo is warping as well. So we stiffen it up right next to the pin. Okay, we don't want to stiffen it up too much because the animation might become too rigid. Just takes a little bit. And a little bit up the top here. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, that's pretty much all we're going to cover today. One thing you might like to do is turn on motion blur for this. And enable motion blur. Very nice. One other tool that the Puppet Pin has is this tool here, the Puppet Overlap tool. And this tool is basically for animating people or puppets or animals. And what you use it for is to tell After Effects whether a hand, for example, or an arm is in front of the body or behind the body. So it's very effective, but we don't need it for this animation. Okay, let's just take a look at my original finished can. Oops, not that one. Okay, so no motion blur on this, but it doesn't look too bad. I like the way the Aqua label moves up and down. Okay, so that covers today's tutorial. In the next tutorial we're going to look at how to build a background using shape layers with gradients and using fractal noise and the grid effect to get a really nice animation where the effects move to the beat of the music. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.